All right, anyway. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parajikacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BPT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parajikacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Okay, the Jaya Radha Madhava song. I think it's composed by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, if I'm not mistaken. So Jaya means all glories. We know that. Radha, Madhava. Krishna is the lover of Radha, Radha Madhava. Kunja. The Kunja are the beautiful garden places in Vrindavan where Radha and Krishna meet and they have pastimes. And Bihari means he who enjoys. So he who enjoys in the groves and gardens of Vrindavan. Gopi, we know Gopi. Jana means people, the Gopi people. Vallabha. He's the beloved of the gopis. This means this expresses their love for him. Gopi Jana Vallabha, he's very beloved to all the gopis. Giri is hill, Vara is the best. For some time, we still have a few devotees thinking Giri Vanadhari. Vana is the forest. Vara means the best. So don't get confused. You know, you get used to thinking Giri Vanadhari when you're in 1971 or whatever, and you're still thinking it. But it means, and Dhari, the lifter. Giridhari, the lifter of the best hill, Govardhan. That's what this is about, see? So, Yashoda Nandana. Yashoda Nandana means the beloved son of Yashoda. Nandana means one who delights. It's a generic term for children. You know, it means the beloved child of Devaki. Devaki Nandana he's also known as. Braja, that's Vraja in Bengali. The B's and the V's are often, merged. So you have Vrindavan instead of Vrindavan. Vrindavan. Isn't that true? The B's and the V's kind of get mixed up. So Braja is Vrindavan. Jana means the people. So the people of Vrindavan, Ranjana. He delights them with his pastimes, his loving pastimes. Okay? And now this is often confused because we know that's the Yamuna River. Y-A-M-U-N, long A, right? Yamuna River. But this is the Yamuna, which means of the Yamuna, not the Yamuna. You see, it's a grammatical thing. And Tira is the bank of the Yamuna. Vana, now you get to the forest. The Chari, he enjoys pastimes, dancing with the gopis on the bank of the Yamuna River, on the banks of the Yamuna River. Okay? So that's what it means. And try to remember that. And next time you sing and you see all the pictures and everything in your mind when you sing. It's a meditation. Okay, now we'll proceed to the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And let me just press the right buttons here, I think. Okay. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On this fifth day of March, on this 5th day of March 2025 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 1, observing the armies on the battlefield of Kurukṣetra, page 55, text 37 to 38. We'll just chant the first one, 37. Yadi api ete napashyanti lobo pahata chetasaha kulakshaya kutam dosham mitra drohe chapatakam yadyapyete napashyanti lobo pahata chetasaha kulakshaya kutam dosham mitra drohe chapatakam yadyapyete napashyanti lobho pahata chetasaha kulakshaya kutam dosham mitra drohe chapatakam yadyapyete napashyanti lobho pahata chetasaha kulakshaya kutam dosham mitra drohe chapatakam yadyapyete napashyanti lobho pahata chetasaha kulakshaya kutam dosham Mitra drohe chapatakam. Yadyapyete na pasyanti. Lobho pahatachetasaha. Kulachaya kutam dosham. Mitra drohe chapatakam. Yadyapyete na pasyanti. Lobho pahatachetasaha. Kulachaya kutam dosham. Mitra drohe chapatakam. Not yet, Hina? Okay, maybe next birth. Let me just take this off. It's getting warm in here. Does anyone know how to turn that heat off? Yeah, he knows that. All right, where were we? 37, 38. Or I'll chant 38 and then we'll read half of the word by words. Katam nagyayam asmabhi paparasmin nivartitum kulakshayakatam dosham prapasyadbhir janardana. Yadi if api even ete they na do not pashyanti see lobha by greed upahata overpowered chetasaha their hearts kulakshaya in killing a family kutam done dosham mitra drohe in quarreling with friends cha also patakam sinful reactions. You got two identical lines. You see that? The next verse has the same kulakshaya kutam dosham. Translation. O Janardhan, excuse me. O Janardhan, although these men, their hearts overtaken by greed, see no fault in killing one's family or quarreling with friends, why should we, who can see the crime in destroying a family, engage in these acts of sin? Purport. A Kshatriya is not supposed to refuse to battle or gamble when he is so invited by some rival party. Under such an obligation, Arjuna could not refuse to fight because he had been challenged by the party of Duryodhana. In this connection, Arjuna considered that the other party might be blind to the effects of such a challenge. Arjuna, however, could see the evil consequences and could not accept the challenge. Obligation is actually binding when the effect is good, but when the effect is otherwise, then no one can be bound. Considering all these pros and cons, Arjuna decided not to fight. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, Arjuna is very concerned because he's a very moral and good man, you know, in addition to being a wonderful devotee. What is the right thing to do? What is he doing, right or wrong? You see? And even though he's famous as a great fighter, if you go through the history, he never fought, you know, against the rules and regulations of the Manusmriti, you know, in terms of what a fighter, what a Kshatriya should do. And so, as Prabhupada points out here, one of the rules of the Kshatriya is that he's always obliged to fight when challenged. But Prabhupada makes the point that that is only that rule only is good, you know, is proper to follow when the result is good, or at least neutral. But here he's seeing very bad result of the fighting. First of all, it's because he's got a relationship with so many of the fighters. It's not some anonymous thing where, you know, you have some battle, like you have this war going on in Ukraine. It's not that the Ukrainians know the Russians know the Ukrainians. You know, of course, it doesn't pertain before that, but it's the only thing you know, battle that we can use as an analogy. So that doesn't apply. They don't think that, oh, I'm going to be killing my relatives on the other side. It doesn't. You can see it's completely irrelevant. But here, especially when the battle is very close on, you know, they're not bombing from a plane or something anonymously. you can see who you're fighting and who so it's a different kind of battle. So there are all these rules, but this special consideration that it's an internecine fight. It's a fight between family members. You had some of that in our own Civil War. You had some families that were divided. It make it more horrendous, the battle anyway. So this is what Arjuna is concerned about here. But what is he not taking into consideration at this point? What Krishna wants. You see? Then Krishna, he's not at all considering that. That this may be Krishna's desire, and that I'm his devotee and I should try to fulfill the desire. That will come out as the book proceeds. And that will eventually become the overriding issue. At Arjuna, in spite of all of these misgivings, because Krishna wants it, Kadashe vachanam tava. At the end of the book, this is a very critical phrase. Kadashe vachanam, I will do as you say. I will do as you say, So Arjuna undergoes a transformation here. And that's what happens to anyone who takes up devotional service. From a conditioned state and a confused state and a desperate state, and you come into touch with the devotees and you read the books and you're inspired to chant, and before long your whole orientation in life has changed. What's important to do, what's important not to do, and that's Krishna consciousness. So Arjuna represents us in the sense that he's dead set against fighting. He drops his bow, he sits down on the chariot, and he's more or less paralyzed, but he does the right thing. He takes shelter of Krishna as the guru. He said, "Now this is the solution to my problem here," because he knows Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, but at this point, he's giving all of his reasons, and they're in many ways, he wants to do the right thing. And on one level, this is the right thing, but when you look at it from a larger perspective, it's on the bodily concept of life. That's the whole plan, and therefore it's wrong. All right, so why don't we go on? Text 39. Kurukṣetra panashyanti kula dharma sanatanaha dharme nashte kulam kritsnam adharmo vibhavatyuta. Wow, three instances of the word dharma. Serious verse. With the destruction of the dynasty, the eternal family tradition is vanquished, and thus the rest of the family becomes involved in irreligion. Purport. In the system of the Varnashram institution, there are many principles of religious tradition to help members of the family grow properly and attain spiritual values. The elder members are responsible for such purifying processes in the family, beginning from birth and extending to death. I think that was fixed, beginning from birth, or just from birth to death. But on the death of the elder members, such family traditions of purification may stop, and the remaining younger family members may develop irreligious habits and thereby lose their chance for spiritual salvation. Therefore, for no purpose should the elder members of the family be slain. Okay, the importance of elders are very emphasized here. I'll take text 40. Now, before we read this verse, there are two purports in the Bhagavad Gita that I always I'm afraid to read. And you'll see why when we read this. But I'm looking at Krishna. He was very merciful to have us do it on a Wednesday where we have a much more committed crew who come here. They don't need to tackle Tuesday to be inspired to come and sit. So anyway, you'll see what I mean. I think we'll get through it. We've been through the Gita at least 4 or 5 times already. All right, text 40. Adharma vibhavat Krishna parishyanti kulastriyaha strishu dushtasu varshneya jayate varna sankaraha. When irreligion is prominent in the family, O Krishna, the women of the family become polluted. And from the degradation of womanhood, O descendant of Vishnu, comes unwanted progeny. Purport. Good population in human society is the basic principle for peace, prosperity, and spiritual progress in life.
The Varnashram religion's principles were so designed that the good population would prevail in society for the general spiritual progress of state and community. Such population depends on the chastity and faithfulness of its womanhood. As children are very prone to be misled, women are similarly very prone to degradation. Therefore, both children and women require protection by the elder members of the family. By being engaged in various religious practices, women will not be misled into adultery. According to Chanakya Pandit, women are generally not very intelligent and therefore not trustworthy. Of course, the exceptions here are sitting here. You're so intelligent, you're attending the class. So the different family tradition of religious activity should always engage them, and thus their chastity and devotion will give birth to a good population eligible for participating in the Varnashram system. On the failure of such Varnashram dharma, naturally the women become free to act and mix with men, and thus adultery is indulged in at the risk of unwanted population. Irresponsible men also provoke adultery in society, and thus unwanted children flood the human race at the risk of war and pestilence. Whoa, that's a heavy purport. So before I go on, I just want to make it clear that Srila Prabhupada was very happy to see ladies join the ISKCON movement. One of the most famous and who received most mercy from Prabhupada was Yamuna Devi, as you probably know if you read any of the Lilamrita. And he entrusted her with the knowledge of how to perform puja. She was actually in charge of setting, when the Krishna Balaram temple was opened, the first temple in Vrindavan. It was a very great victory to get it built. She was in charge of setting up the deity standards there. And he entrusted her with so many things. And if you go through in ISKCON today, in America, you'll find half of the temples in North America run by ladies, very successful temples. Many of you may know Sandamini. She was here when I came in '89. She was actually joined, I think, in San Diego. And then she went to New Mexico, to Tucson, and she's been there ever since and set up a wonderful restaurant and the temple there, expanding all the time. And so great, responsibility. In Alachua, you have Mukhya Devi, who has been the president there at least for 10, 15 years. And I used to go there twice a year because I have a friend there, Indra Pramad, very close friend, and I would see him before the pandemic. And they had these beautiful, I don't have my iPad here, but beautiful deities, Krishna Balaram deities. But they couldn't install them because they didn't have enough room in the temple. And so they had beautiful Shamashunda deities there and the Gaurnitai deities. I think they have Jagannath on the right altar. But anyway, so finally she organized the building of a whole other building behind that was like for all of the cooking for the deities, and also had big feasts and everything. It's a beautiful building, and that opened up room where they could finally install those deities, which they had in a closet. And those deities are the most exquisite Krishna Balaram deities. I mean, the ones in, of course, Vrindavan are so beautiful. But remind me, I'll try to bring my. Anyway, I can send you the pictures I have. Just absolutely wonderful. And she was responsible for overseeing that whole building of the whole thing, and she's very competent. In Washington, you have, I think, Vrindavaneshri, I think her name is. And she's the daughter of a general, I think, in the Army or something like that. And she runs that tight ship over there. I'm telling you, she's been there for many, many years. Washington, D.C., Potomac, which is right near. In Chicago, you have Hemangi, who's a very competent leader. She was the wife of the former president. She's Indian, but she's doing a wonderful job. And so in this way, the ladies in North America are doing a very important work and very responsible work, leading whole temples. So It doesn't have to be that way, but you can see the importance of stable marriages and proper education, for the development of a healthy population in any society. But especially you have the Varnashram, where the children are meant to be raised in a devotional atmosphere. Prabhupada had that blessing. King Pariksit, was born into a devotee family. And Prabhupada was very hopeful in his first the disciples who, he got them married and they had children. He started the Gurukul school, for raising the kids. So it all depends. Obviously, the women have a very, very key role in that, in raising the children and the stability of any society. It's like that. So here Arjuna is thinking, well, look, what'll happen? I'm going to be killing all these men. What's going to happen to their wives? They'll be, widows, and society will get all messed up. So the elders, now the women, and then he describes what will happen if this, because he's foreseeing this. This is all material he's foreseeing, bodily concept. Text 41. Sankaro narakayaiva kulagnanam kulasya patanti patado yesham luptapindo dikashkriyaha. An increase of unwanted population. This is a Varna Sankara. An increase of unwanted population certainly causes hellish life, both for the family and for those who destroy the family tradition. The ancestors of such corrupt families fall down because the performance for offering them food and water are entirely stopped. This is the famous Shraddha ceremony. You see Dharma Setu, he performs these all the time, right? For the ancestors, like that. So even Lord Chaitanya did that also for his own father. He went to Gaya. Purport. According to the rules and regulations of fruitive activities, there is a need to offer periodical food and water to the forefathers of the family. The offering is performed by worship of Vishnu because eating the remnants of food offered to Vishnu can deliver one from all kinds of sinful reactions. Sometimes the forefathers may be suffering from various types of sinful reactions, and sometimes some of them cannot even acquire a gross material body and are forced to remain in subtle bodies as ghosts. Thus, when the remnants of prasadam food are offered to forefathers by descendants, the forefathers are released from ghostly or other kinds of miserable life. Such help rendered to forefathers is a family tradition, and those who are not in devotional life are required to perform such rituals. One who is engaged in the devotional life is not required to perform such actions. Simply by performing devotional service, one can deliver hundreds and thousands of forefathers from all kinds of misery. It is stated in the Bhagavatam 11.541, Devarshi bhutapta vrinam patrinam nakinkaro nayam rini charajan sarvatmana yaksharanam sharanyam gato mukundam parihritya kartam. Anyone who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda, the giver of liberation, giving up all kinds of obligation, and has taken to the path in all seriousness, owes neither duties nor obligations to the demigods, the sages, general living entities, family members, humankind, or forefathers. Close quote. Such obligations are automatically fulfilled by performance of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, this is another thing that he's foreseeing, that with unwanted population and degradation in society, those Shraddha ceremonies are not going to be performed, and that will lead to degradation of the forefathers and degradation of those who are breaking those traditions. So Arjuna is foreseeing all this. Now this verse, Devarshi Bhutapta Nrinam, this is an important verse because what is being said here is, well, first of all, I don't know if I said this because the things were kind of confused, so I'm going to say it now just to be on the safe side. Om Jnanatrimarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So this verse is important for all of us because first of all, it lays out a fact that we often don't think of. in our materialistic, culture here. And that is that we're all indebted. We're certainly indebted to our parents, to our teachers, But what about the sun god, who gives, the sun and the Vayu, the air god and the water god? In other words, just forget about, just for a moment, forget about the supreme god, but all the demigods, we're living off their largesse. It's not an accident. There's a God in charge of the water, and God in charge of the air, and God in charge of the earth, and in charge of the sun. All the things that we depend on to live, they were gods. Prabhupada says somewhere that, even blinking your eyes, there's a God, So the point is, we're debtors. Even on a material level, you have your parents and you have your teachers and friends and all kinds of people, and we all live as a society. And so one should feel a need to reciprocate and pay that back, So here's the list: Deva, Rishi, Bhuta, Apta, Nrinam, and Patrinam. This is a list of people here that we are indebted to. The Devas, as I mentioned, the Rishis, the teachers, wise, other living entities in general, Nrinam, human beings, the forefathers, the servants, Rini. Rini means debtors. We owe a debt. And then, but Sarvatmananak Sharanam Sharanyam Gato Mukundam, one who takes shelter of Mukunda, of Krishna, who is after all the one who provides all the things that all these other entities can give us. Where do our teachers get the intelligence to teach us the ABCs? From Krishna. It's all coming from Krishna, right? The intelligence is there. The super soul is given. So the point of this verse is, if you become a servant, you take shelter of the one to take shelter of Sharanam Sharanyam, who is Mukunda, then Padirichikartam, you are free of all debts. Your debts are all consolidated. Like if you have so many credit cards, and you consolidate into one. I think you can do that. I never was in debt in my whole life. I never went into debt. So that's one thing I avoided, thank God. But I know that can be a tremendous burden, to try to. So somehow, okay, if you just Mr. Dolan, you just pay this one bill, every month, and then all your debts will be taken care of. So that's if you're serving Krishna and you're trying to give him, worship and service, then all the debts are liquidated. Isn't that a wonderful thing? Otherwise, we're debtors. We die when we're debtors. Then, it's a burden. So such obligations are automatically fulfilled by performance of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that includes also this business of the Shraddha and the Pitris and worrying about your ancestors. As it becomes very clear in the pastime of Prahlad that here his father was this big demon, Hiranyakashipu. Now he was blessed. You look at the backstory, he's Jai or Vijay. I don't know which one, maybe Jai. And I won't go into the whole story, but they were really residents of Vaikuntha. They were guards, and they had supposedly offended the four Kumaras because they didn't let him in. The four Kumaras at that point were not really devotees. They were Brahmavadis. They were into Brahman, And so when they wouldn't let him into the Vaikuntha, then they cursed him to go, to take birth on the earth of demons or whatever like. So at that point, there was this, ruckus going on at the gate. This is the gate, and Narayan comes, and the four Kumaras, they smell the fragrance of the Tulsi Manjaris on the lotus feet of Krishna, and they turn into bhaktas at that point. And they're so sorry, they cursed the Vaishnavas, Vijay and Vijay, and Narayan had to assure them, don't worry, this is part of my greater plan. He wanted to fight, and so forth, Vijay and Vijay. So they had 3 births as demons, then they could return to Vaikuntha. So the first two are Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha. Yeah, his brother Hiranyaksha. They were the first big demons. And Krishna killed both of them, not in the same incarnation. One was the incarnation of Varaha. This is because Hiranyaksha was always mining for earth. And he dug so much mines of looking for gold. His name is Hiranya. That's literally what his name means. always looking for gold. Akshay is the eyes, and Hiranya is gold. So he did unbalance the earth, and it fell down into the Garbhodak ocean. Great. So Krishna had to save it. So he came in just the right form, and only could do that. Just like Nrsingadev had to come as that form, not a man, not an animal. He killed him neither inside or outside. He was on the threshold. He didn't kill him with any weapons. He just tore him apart with his nails. Nails aren't really a weapon. And like that, there was all these blessings of Brahma, and he fulfilled those. So that's why Nrsingadev. But Varaha, what's his special form now? He's got that big snout, right? That big kind of tusk that can root around in the mud at the bottom of the Garbhodak ocean, pick up the earth, and then carry it up to the first surface and save it. So that's why. So that's the two first births. The next one was Ravana and Kumbhakarna, his brother, the two brothers. They were the other demons. And the third, does anyone remember the third? Students of Krishna book? Shalva, and no, I'm sorry, not Shalva, Shishupal and Dantavakra. Shishupal was killed in the assembly, Rajasuya sacrifice. He's insulting Krishna, and it gets to his allotted number of his insults. It was destined to have like 108 or something. And then Krishna cut off his head. And then the other one was Dantavakra, who was associate of Shalva. And Shalva had this big airplane, and Dantavakra was killed on the battlefield. And then Jai and Vijay were reinstated. So, we should feel ourselves, actually relieved. We don't have to worry about the Shraddha ceremony, as if you're serious Vaishnavas, because you're already, just by being Vaishnavas, you're helping so many generations back and descendants also. Because they're related to them. There's a connection there, and your bhakti is also being taken into account. So that's a good thing. But Arjuna is worried. I'll be partially responsible for the killing of all these men, and the women become unprotected, and then there'll be Vardasankara, and all these traditions will stop, and it'll be on my head. I'll go to hell. So this is what he's foreseeing. It's all a mistake, but this is his argument. All right, text 42. Doshar etai kulagnanam varna sankadakarkai utsadyante jati dharma kuladharmascha shasvatah. Now it's interesting that the dharma is obviously a very important consideration here. So many of the verses have this word dharma in it. One of them had like 3 or 4 dharmas, and finally when he surrenders to Krishna in the beginning of the next chapter, near the beginning, he's worried that I don't know what real dharma is. What my real dharma is, please instruct me. He's confused about his real dharma. Although he's talking about dharma here. By the evil deeds of those who destroy the family tradition, and that'll be me, and thus give rise to unwanted children, all kinds of community projects and family welfare activities are devastated. Purport: community projects for the 4 orders of human society, combined with family welfare activities, as they are set forth by the institution of Sanatan Dharma, or Varnashram Dharma, are designed to enable the human being to attain his ultimate salvation. Therefore, the breaking of the Sanatan Dharma tradition by irresponsible leaders of society brings about chaos in that society, and consequently people forget the aim of life, Vishnu. Such leaders are called blind, and persons who follow such leaders are sure to be led into chaos. So this is what we see all around us. People have, where's the Dharma? And yes, you have a question. But we have mics, because we have an audience. Oh, you have the mic there.
Yeah. Well, would you so kindly...
You have to turn it on.
Yeah, until it light
Would
goes.
you so kindly give your definition of Dharma?
Sure. Dharma is the intrinsic nature of something that cannot be separated from it. For instance, forgive my analogy, I have no imagination. You have some people sitting on chairs back there. So the chairs are built in such a way, there's a certain dharma. That means you sit up and it holds you up, right? Now, if the chair is broken, sometimes they find their way into the alleyway eventually. We've seen that. Then you sit on it and it collapses. Oh, it's not meaning it's dharma, The dharma of water, it's meant to be liquid. The ice is kind of an artificial, state of water. But water is, and it's a liquid. It can slake your thirst. You can clean with it. There's so many things you can do. So everything has its intrinsic nature. And because dharma, the word dharma, in Sanskrit, you have these roots of the words. And they give you an understanding of what the intrinsic meaning is. So the root of the word dharma is dri. It's the same root of the word dhari, which means to hold up. Giridhari. He was holding up the hill. This whole temple is named after him. So the dharma, if we're acting against our own dharma, or we don't know what our real dharma is, then we're going to get confused in society. You see? So what is the dharma of the soul? That's really the question. And the dharma of the soul is to serve God especially. But even in our conditioned state, we're serving. Well, no, when you get hungry, you got to serve the stomach, And every moment, we learn this in the pandemic, you got to breathe. We're serving that need to breathe. So dharma is an intrinsic nature of something. And here Prabhupada talks about the Sanatan Dharma, or the eternal Dharma of the soul. And the reason why we suffer in this world, because we don't know what it is. And so we're acting in such a way that's contrary to our real nature. So that's the Dharma is. And, sometimes you look it up, and it's an English word. You take so many words from Sanskrit, French, and so many other languages. So you look it up in the English dictionary, and it'll say some kind of faith. In other words, religion. That's often translated as religion. But we're concerned with the Sanatan Dharma, the eternal religion of the soul. Now, religion is an interesting word. It means to tie up again. A ligament is like, right, something that ties like a rope. So that's really what we want to do. We want to get tied up again, or connected again. That's where the yoga comes in, with God. And that's what Bhakti Yoga does. It systematically purifies the heart so that the eternal Dharma that's already there, you see, that it's completely natural for the soul to want to serve God and to be happy in that service and reciprocation. Bhakti is like a two-way street. Bhakti doesn't mean that we're serving Krishna and there's no reciprocation. Bhakti means we're serving Krishna, he's reciprocating the loving exchange. So that's our eternal state and our Sanatan Dharma. And Varnashram Dharma is a way of organizing society in such a way that fosters that in everybody who's in that society. And Prabhupada talks about Varnashram Dharma here, and I think it's explained. It's mentioned, Krishna talks about it, that he's the father of Varnashram Dharma. I mean, setting up the social orders and also spiritual orders by which one society is organized. There can be prosperity, but at the same time, everyone is moving toward that understanding of his relationship with God. Because the whole purpose of, what's the purpose of human life? Does it have a purpose? But, mostly we think, well, the purpose is to what? Enjoy as much as possible, isn't it? No. That's, ultimately we do want to enjoy, but what is really possible? The real enjoyment, my favorite verse, Yehi Sangsparjita Bhoga Dukkha Yona Evate, that the intelligent person who understands this Bhagavad Gita and other books of knowledge, Vedic knowledge, eschews, means rejects, those pleasures that are due entirely to the contact of the senses with the sense objects, which is really what we know on the material plane. We're pleasure seeking. But we also find out, why do they reject it? Intelligent persons who know, because they know that it's the source of all misery, such pleasures, for two reasons. One is that, as we all know, and I probably experienced sometime in this life, that if there's something pleasurable and you overdo it, like eating something very, very tasty, you have to suffer. I'll tell you a story. It goes back to Mayapur, believe it or not. And I was induced, some of you may have heard this before, to engage in a, believe it or not, pizza eating contest. Yes. By my authority. He was in charge of the Australian BBT, who I was then working for, because I was working on the Chaitanya Charitamrita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. So I was there, and it was, I was a brahmachari, and there were two sannyasis who were going to be part of this contest. So it was the three of us. And then there was the organizer of the contest. He had a little house in Mayapur, and he was known for making nice pizza. So he made, so there we are in his holy land, Mayapur. And it was lunchtime, and we're sitting there, and he's making the pizzas, bringing them out, making the pizzas, bringing them out. So I had my fill. I said, that's it. I've had 5 pieces. I can't have any more. Skinny little guy. And then one of the others also was filled. But then there was one scenario. He was literally lying on his back, and the last pizza, and he won the pizza contest. Now, okay, I didn't win. By that time, I was ready to take rest, as you say, and I couldn't eat for 3 days. I practically fasted for 3 days. I had some water, obviously, but I couldn't actually. I survived it, So that was an experience. But that's, or anything, what happens when that's your only mindset is that then you have this, drug culture where, and alcohol, they say, well, I had a great time, we all got drunk and we, like that. And that's just so destructive. It leads to so much suffering, obviously. But the main way it leads to suffering, or if you understand, is that whenever you enjoy something, not that way, it implants a desire in your consciousness to do it again, to enjoy it again. That's the whole philosophy of advertising. To somehow, sometimes you're driving along. If you're driving up to, if you're driving up to L.A., you come to a point where there's a lot of refineries on one side and a whole bunch of billboards on the other, one after another, And what's the idea behind a billboard? Well, it's a science. How, in those few seconds that you're driving by, can they grab your attention? Not so much that you'll have an accident, I guess that can happen too, but that you'll be attracted to the message, you'll get something, you'll be, there's usually someone beautiful, the opposite sex, who's involved, and they plant a desire in your head. And then you forget about it, right? But it's in there. And the next time you want to buy beer or something, say, well, maybe I'll try that beer, or use that airline, whatever it may be. So that's a science. But what's going on as you live your life devoid of any of yoga, it's just a series of enjoyments, and also there's the negative part, horrible experiences you have that you can't forget, that also goes into your consciousness. And at the time of death, which we're all going to face one day, it's simply the end of the body. Nobody dies. Nijayate mrite bhakadachan. There's no birth and no death for the soul, and that's really us. But if we're in the bodily concept of life, we're sure to experience that, and it's very, very frightening. So the state of your mind, plus your karmic, your karma, your activities that you did, that's also a consideration, will determine your next life. And if there's no element of Krishna consciousness or God consciousness or genuine religion, then you can very easily, especially in this age, lose the human form of life entirely and go down, down, down to dog body or even lower. You won't say that there's no eternal damnation, but it can be, you've wasted so much time. The human life is so precious, and in this kind of life alone, we can understand that the goal of life is Vishnu, is God, is reestablishing, awakening our relationship with God. And even a little advancement, this is what's so wonderful about Krishna consciousness, none of us here are going to get animal bodies, because we have some advancement. You listen to Bhagavad Gita, not what I'm saying, but the Prabhupada is saying. And so that's also in there. That's an element in there. And that, Krishna appreciates that. You'll get a body in your next life, a human body somehow to continue. So this is all, the Sanatana Dharma, the eternal Dharma of the soul, is to be an eternal loving servant of God and experience this spiritual world where there's no birth, there's no death, there's no, I'm not going to say the name, but this political situation now, everyone has so much anxiety. Oh God. It just seemed like the end of the world that's coming, right? But really, I mean, I remember the Cuban Missile Crisis. I'm that old. 1962, I think it was. 63. I think it's 63. And I was, I think, in junior in high school or something. And it was just devastating. I mean, I didn't go to school. I just watched TV. The Russian ships are coming. There's going to be a confrontation. And I like to tell this story because it's come out that we came this close to the end of the world, closer than anyone thought of. Because I don't know if how much you really know about that, but the Americans, we had installed missiles in Turkey, which is just a 20-minute flight to Moscow from there. Those missiles, So the Russians, they said, well, we have our ally in Cuba, so we were going to put in missiles there, and they did. They didn't tell us, but we found out by overflights. And so, this is 90 miles away from the United States. Suddenly, there's these ballistic missiles, and so we thought, well, this is a provocation. And Krishna arranged it that Kennedy was there, because the whole cabinet, all of the defense guys said, no, we got to invade, we got to invade, we got to invade. And Kennedy was afraid it would blow up into World War III, which it probably would have. And he had been to war. He had already experienced it. He was a veteran, so he really wanted to avoid that. Anyway, so he established that he got through to Khrushchev, and then he didn't want war either. So, but we had a quarantine. It was actually a blockade, but as soon as you have a blockade, that's an act of war. So we didn't call it a blockade, we called it a quarantine. The ships all around Cuba, So then, semantic. So the Russians, they had a flotilla that was, steaming toward, across the ocean. It took some days, so the whole world is on edge. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? And so they get to the flotilla, so they stopped. There wasn't. But what no one else knew, but we knew, is that that the American military knew that there were some submarines also that were floating with them. And it turns out later that we found out that those submarines, at least one of them, had nuclear-tipped torpedoes. So the Americans we found out about them, so we wanted them to surface, And so we called up Moscow, but you can imagine that even though I think we got through to Moscow, but Moscow couldn't really get to their submarines. There wasn't the communication. So we told them, tell them we're going to drop these depth charges. I think that's what they call them. But they're not lethal. They're just meant to warn you, and so that they come to the surface, like that. But in the submarine, they didn't know that, and so the depth charges started to explode, And they said, "Oh, this is World War III now," So let's mobilize these torpedoes and knock down their aircraft carrier or something with a hydrogen bomb, atomic bomb. So some of you may have seen these movies. I don't know if they have them anymore, but there had to be two guys, so not one guy can't go crazy and do it with two keys, far away, so they can't do two keys. So they were doing that, but it just so happened by Krishna's arrangement that the admiral of the whole fleet was on that submarine. And so he had to give, the captains and his first mate, they were ready to do it. But the admiral said, no, this doesn't make any sense. We should surface. And they surfaced and found out, oh, it's nice, the war isn't on yet, So that's how close it came. And there's some other close calls too. So this is the world we live in, and all because Varna Sankara, all because there's no Krishna consciousness, there's no understanding of what's going on. So anyway, that's Dharma. If Adharma reigns, and Krishna says in the 4th chapter, why do I appear? Why he appears? Because there's an upsurge of Adharma. Yada yada hi dharmasya glani bhavati bhara. Glani means disruption or discrepancies in dharmas. And there's over surge of adharma. And then I come, and I protect the devotees, I annihilate the miscreants, and I reinstate dharma. And that's what we're witnessing here. He came at this time 5,000 years ago, and the war was meant to reinstitute dharma, because there was a lot of demons who were trying to take over and actually murder the Pandavas. And he came again 500 or so years ago as Lord Chaitanya to simplify the whole matter. Just chant Hare Krishna. You know, chant Hare Krishna and hear from the sages and read the Bhagavad Gita as it is. And you'll be fine. All right, so we will resume on text 42 on Monday. And maybe left a few minutes for a poem or two. Did we do 42? Yeah, I guess so. Okay, how about 43 then? All right, we'll do 43.
Dravida, I got a humble request. Next Wednesday, if you could spend few minutes just talking a little bit about karma.
About karma itself?
Yeah, just so I have a deep understanding.
Okay.
The gist of it.
Karma.
But it's a complicated way.
Okay. You just remind me, okay? You'll be here, right?
Yeah, I will.
All right. Okay. So, any requests? We had requests last time. All right, here's one we haven't heard in a while. Or it's the first verse of the Shikshastika, because that is so critical. This verse was written by Lord Chaitanya himself, and it gives, I think, 7 metaphors or results of chanting Hare Krishna. And in metaphor, there's 7 metaphors in the whole thing. Cheto darpanam marjanam bhava mahadabhagni nirvapanam shreya kaidabachandikava tadanam vidyavadhu jivanam anandam buddhivardhanam pratibadham purnamita swadanam sarvatmasnapadam padam vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. So he's talking about Sankirtan. Krishna Sankirtan means congregational chanting of the holy name. There's 2 main reasons. One was meditative in the beads, which are important. Lord Chaitanya did that. But he emphasizes congregational chanting, with dancing and chanting, you know. No prerequisites. That's the next verse. Yeah. All glories to the chanting of Sri Krishna's holy names, which easily extinguishes samsara's blazing flames by polishing the lust-encrusted mirror of the heart. That chanting is the waxing moon that knows the secret art of causing the white lotus of good fortune to unfurl its petals far and wide throughout this bleak and blighted world. Of transcendental knowledge, which will take us to life's goal, the chanting of the name of Krishna is the life and soul. The ocean of ecstatic bliss floods far beyond its bounds, wherever Krishna's merciful and mystic name resounds. Indeed, whenever Krishna's names are sung in congregation, at every step one tastes a joy that knows no limitation. So hear with great attention as I earnestly request, please chant Shri Krishna's holy names and be supremely blessed. The soothing nectar of the name will bathe your consciousness, bestow pure love for Krishna, and eradicate distress. So that's the Yuga Dharma, back to the Dharma, is the chanting of the holy name of Krishna, especially in congregation. And let's go do it. We don't want to do that. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.